Hello, everyone. Welcome to a very special stream, and we're already off to a good start. Chris Nirvana Tool here to talk about a little bit of news that came out that a lot of people seem to be very opinionated about. So, I mean, as the place for Warlord digital banter, or one of the places, as we have multiple content creators now. Shout out to Sly Fox and Warlord Card Gamer. I figure we might as well talk about what has happened here. And here we go. I'm expecting a whole lot of live opinions, some hot takes. But I felt that based off of the reaction, I think at this time that, I just, let's do a stream and let's talk about exactly what this is. I'll be sure to, I'm going to be cracking up at you guys the entire time. So hopefully I can get this out. But we're going to break down the new update to the Ancients format. Oh, man, we're already getting some subs. Oh, there we go. My alerts are hidden in the back, but I got that fixed. There we go. Thanks for the gifted sub, Joanski. See, this is what happens. I'll give a little background here. Obviously, based off everyone's reaction, I'm like, I got to get a stream going and talk about it. Haven't had any time and didn't have any prep to do it, but I was like, all right, I'll just build some layouts and let's get going. So this is what we're going to get. I think this is the best I could do in about 10 minutes of work. So going in completely unprepared, but we will talk about this. We'll talk about these changes. We'll break down exactly what I think the reasoning is. And in full disclosure, obviously, because I am a source of truth here, I had known about this list for, ironically, the day before I came down with Bell's palsy. One of the last things I did was jump on a call with the Guardians and talk about this list and debate what was rational, what was not, what's the reasoning for this, if everything seemed sound and logical. So we're going to joke around saying that you guys may have had a bad reaction, but then my body literally just decided to show off the left side of my face as a response to it. So don't worry. It's all good. But I have some, obviously, conversations with those who were behind this decision. I'll even take some part of the blame for the decision because I do, for the most part, agree with a lot of these. So I will go through and kind of talk a little bit more about the justification. Of course, what we're seeing on this screen is the post that has gone up by Woodrow. Ironically, I even proofed it right before he hit publish, literally like the second. I was like, yeah, you're good to go. And then it's live. And it's like, oh God, here we go. I hope I was good. But so I will give that disclaimer, obviously, because I don't want to misrepresent like me learning. I've had some time to kind of stew on this. So I do recognize that everyone's reaction has really been like just fresh, raw, like, this sucks. Like, I love the Dahlia, for example. Oh, now we're getting ahead of ourselves. I loved Healer's Pack. But all of that, like, obviously, I want to say it's okay to hate this update. It is perfectly fine. Like, opinions are great. Like, absolutely. Like, nobody's going to completely agree. Every single game I've ever played, and especially with a restricted list, whenever anything comes out, there's never been a universally loved update. Somebody has always had an issue. Somebody always feels that it was either too harsh or too soft, or just they just hate it for principle, that they don't like change. Like there's a lot of reasons to dislike any updates. But I don't think I've ever seen Healer's Pack. Don't worry, you're not alone. We will get to that. But let's talk about this. Let's go diving in right into the article. So obviously on sagathestorm.com, if you can go into the article section, you'll see in the Ancients format, there is, what is Ancients and all this other good jazz. Some funny little memes that Woodrow was kind of thrown together. But in this, he has broken down the thoughts behind what he thinks a update should be. I'm saying he as in Woodrow just because I know he was the one who wrote this, but really I will say the Guardians as a whole, because everybody's taking the blame for this. I will shit all over Woodrow. Woodrow, I see you in the chat, because that is just what we do for fun here. But we will get to it. So if you haven't read any of this intro, I just want to encourage you to. So obviously I don't think we're going to go through and read too much about it. Just obviously on your own time go through, because here we want to kind of get to the cards, but especially the reasoning behind why a card would go on to the list. It really explains the thought process and gives a little bit more like frame of reference. And that's kind of how you always want to operate whenever you kind of work a banned or restricted list. Like, give yourself some set of guidelines so that you yourself are not operating based off of an emotional reaction. I think I've even seen, like, that was some of the criticism of this, that it felt like it was emotional reaction. And this, all these points before had, is what kind of removes that. Because there is, you know, a lot of, you can tie each one of these cards that receive the change to one of these points. So obviously point one being most of the cards throughout the game's history should be available. Speed limit, most turns, particularly the first, should have a relatively similar number of actions taken by each player. Gold fishing, most games should be battling back and forth with each player participating. Infinite and alternates, most games should be decided by various forms of combat and die rolls. Broken cards, cards not involving die rolls with game-winning impact should be monitored. Fun, the format should be as fun as possible for as many player types as possible. So these are all obviously just, this is what we want as a format. Like, if you have these guiding principles and you make sure you stick to them, that's how you get an effective list. And I would say, for the most part, it's been a great job. In general, I'd say any of the updates that we've made since the initial list has been very soft-handed. And I even think, you know, as a whole right now, before today's update, I'd say this is soft-handed too. And I like that. But let's go into it. Oh, there we go. Some more funny memes. See, Woodrow likes to make you laugh before he crushes your dreams with all these cards you love. But let's get right into it, because I don't want to take too much time here. But reserve lists. So obviously some cards were banned. Some cards were restricted. Some were reserved. We're going to start with the reserve, the lightest form of change I think you can make. This, obviously, for those who don't know, means that these cards may not start in play. So you'll see a lot of level 1s and 2s on here. And in some cases, Makusa Cavalry, because of Nasrul hate, or High Priest Nasrul. But what we have here are the 3 cards that got hit. Ardanalis, the level 1 elf recursion engine, right over here on the, oh, my cursor, I don't think you guys see it, but well, there we go. Now you can see my cursor. A little Ardanalis over here. Brel and Nelwis, who are essentially the same character in just different ways, where they both inflict an additional wound once a either Nothrog Siege or an elf in the rank behind targets a non-spell range strike. So basically, all of these cards were to kind of slow down certain things. Did we talk about the ban list yet? No, you just got here. So you're just in time. So let's start with Ardanalis. So Ardanalis has been hit with not being able to start and play. The reasoning behind is also given down here. Is a card that we've reserved for now until further notice. The goal here is not to totally erase Ardanalis for decks, but present a speed bump. And the speed bump is what it is. There were decks running around that drop Kargaz. Obviously, you can run 3 of them in a deck. You don't have to pay the $150 or whatever they're going for in order to have real paper ones. And once, you know, if you just start 3 of these, it's really puts your opponent in a position where, go ahead, attack it. I'm just going to recur it and keep getting tons and tons of strikes. So then they kind of encourage your opponent to not, you know, go for what that main principle of the game is, where it should be a back and forth. This is just very deterring to swing at all and normal interaction with the game. But it really, you know, this one here, I know there were some examples of a Haviland Tanzik deck that Iceman and Woodrow ran. And I think that was kind of the frame of reference here, where it was constantly recurring Ardanalis, and you had an engine to kill Ardanalis reliably in order to fuel, like, Cyrus Netherin, you know, Kargaz, who I already mentioned, Skyrek, who is going to be your level 2 starter, in order to kind of generate 20 strikes in the first turn. Honestly, their deck didn't even make the cut. So I don't believe that we should use that as a frame of reference for this, and if that was the justification, I do feel it's weak because obviously there are answers around it. But a reserved hit, I think, and this is, again, my opinion, a reserved hit is light enough to where you don't kill that style of deck. You, as you said, put a speed bump on it. So you don't start Arnalis. You can still draw him, and there's tons of draw, don't worry. Slightly less draw for the elves. But, there's other ways to get it. In fact, obviously, when speaking about Woodrow, what's his favorite card? Dust to Dust. Just dust to dust any character and then go find your Arnalis. So you now have the, 6 out of the 44 cards in your deck that you can draw first turn will generate this engine piece that you need. And it really kind of makes you just build better. It encourages you to do that, which is always a good thing. So, and for that reason, my own personal opinion when talking with the other Guardians about it is I thought a reserved hit here is fine. Not because I think it's broken. It's just, let's put it on there. It doesn't completely remove the archetype. So I'm cool with that. If nobody ever wants to even try it or touch it, it proves to be shitty. I would say you can kind of consider taking it off. And I think that's also an important thing to remember here. This list is not written in stone. It can be changed. If any of these changes that we're about to talk about turn out to be garbage, and there's actual proof of it, there's nothing stopping us from changing it back. Again, like we the community, as a whole, kind of are in control here. We're at the driver's seat, so we can do it. But it all has to be within reason of all that. So we'll see where this one goes. This is the one I probably like the least, honestly. Arnell, I thought he should just stay here, but given that it's reserved, it's totally fine. We'll see how it goes. Brell and Nois. Nois, and again, this is more for violating that unfun factor. If you do not build your deck properly, you will die probably action 4. That's not even a game. You didn't play anything. And for those who don't know, with Brell, it's literally, okay, you start 2, you just play Trebuchet, a level 4 Nothrog character that does a +5 range strike from anywhere. Doesn't matter. It'll hit whoever. So that +2 Brell that you're going to start is 3 wounds. Most Warlords have 3 wounds. That's the end of it. If they don't have an answer, they don't have anything, it's just dead. Woodrow in chat is also mentioning Conflagration. Also another version, similar version of Trebuchet. But there's multiple options there. So this takes that deck off the table, or at least slows it down too, because you actually have to earn those long-range shots. Most likely it kills those decks. Were they super strong to begin with? Probably not top tier, but they are certainly capable of winning, as Avarice Glynn did at Worlds last year, piloted by Wes. He ran that with no wins. Just Avarice Glynn scribing on any spell that can target regardless of rank, hitting them with a range strike. Doesn't matter if you if you cancel that spell, you still got targeted. So boom, here comes a 3 wound shot. Just based off of these no wins. And you had a level 1 that gives +2 on the range strike. So you essentially get a +10 for 3 wounds right off the bat. Again, a lot of answers to this deck. That deck has a very frail starting army. If you have a Spencer Latham and you're a Darmy, you just completely rip him apart. First action, win initiative, hit, that's it. The deck is done. And that's the end of it. But even then, that's a very specific case. And that's what you have to wonder. You have to think about the players at whole and the meta at whole. Not everybody starts Spencer Latham. Sure, they can. And the mindset of, why wouldn't you do that if you're going to go play in a competitive tournament, is a valid argument. But it's also not really the reality. Everybody likes to play. Like, again, we are playing a game that has been, we're not going to call it a dead game. We're playing an out-of-print game that has monthly tournaments of 35 plus players on average, on the low, and at the height 60 plus. Like, So it's a very weird situation we have, but a lot of the reason that everyone's here is not for glory and not for calling themselves the best Warlord player in the world. We're here because we enjoy the game. Losing fourth action is not fun. I mean, it's fast. So at least if you're going to lose, put a bullet to my fucking head, but it's not that great to experience. So that's what's going on here. I am just checking some things of why I'm being yelled at. Oh, okay. Look at that, Sanji. Thank you for the advertisement in Discord. I just saw a notification. I wanted to make sure I wasn't getting yelled at for any reason. So with that, those are the reserved. I agree with these two. I don't think anyone's going to miss these decks, and it's totally fine. If you like the decks that can win right away, there's still Nuclear Bronwyn. There you go. And that has a lot more style. Big problem with the deck, if you don't draw it, you lose. That's true. And you know what? Like that's a play style, and that's totally fine. And that's the consistency is the issue there. I think on a Iceman reject corner for Ancients, I did a Bronwyn Tanzwick deck that does Armageddon first turn, and tries to save everything with a 2 HP start. Or, you can just do Hand of Power. If you draw the Ring of Blasting and you discard some spells, you can Armageddon for like 4 wounds and just murder them. And it's cool, but it takes so much to pull off. It really does. So those kind of combos are cool and awesome, and they fit. And there's a lot of ways to disrupt them. When you only have a clock of 4 actions, sometimes even just 1 action, it's not enough. So I agree with these two easily. 2 out of 3, I'd say. Or Nellis is fine. Restricted list. So now we go to 2 cards that are going to be limited to 1x in decks. So they're not completely removed from the card pool, but they are deemed powerful enough that, all right, let's just put the 1 in there. And there is a lot of philosophy here that could be, contested, I would say, in terms of whether that's good. The idea of having a 1-of copy in a deck, it's like, well, now there's no consistency in your deck build. It's almost like I'd rather just have 0 of it and just have them completely banned, because then every time you see your opponent draw the 1x of it, you're like, you lucky fuck. And that could be a bad thing. But so that is just kind of like a personal opinion I have in general of restricted cards. But like things that I'd say in Warlord, that has kind of worked out. Like the restricted Torin Yeskar, I think that's perfect. Having him just have a 1x in almost every deck that can draw has really, I would say, been a very nice fix, and allows people to enjoy that card because he's so iconic, but not be super oppressive where you're doing 3 Torns a turn, which is what Open was. But that's just restricted list as a whole. Let's look at these specific examples. So starting off with Suicidal Charge. This one is Super Bull Rush, but you die at the end of turn. Anyone who watched my High Priest Natural saw me use this card very well. Anyone who was paying attention to Ancients saw Nemesis decks using it with Amanasi's Blaze, or Tavish Jape using it with Amanasi Blaze. Really, anyone who was playing Amanasi Blaze, he is probably the real culprit on top of High Natural Hate. That is the reasoning for hitting Suicidal Charge. It's to lower the consistency of drawing that first action blowout. So not only did you just get, so in the case of Amanasi's Blaze, not only do you get 3 strikes, +5, +3, +1, first action of the game by starting it, but the lasting effect will not happen. The character will not be killed at the end of the turn, because the second Amanasi's Blaze finishes performing its attack, it turns into Amanasi's Inferno. It searches your deck for a copy of that and puts it into play in the front rank. So before my opponent got to do anything, I hit them for 3 strikes, and I have a level 4 in the front rank. It's really powerful. So that is kind of what they wanted to get rid of. In similar vein with High Priest Natural, you saw me starting Simope and getting 4 strikes first action. And then the very next action after that, I Hero's Gambit with the same character. So I get another attack of 3 strikes. and they inflict two wounds a shot, and then the character who would die at the end of the turn is dying at the end of this attack now. So just from 2 actions, you usually nuke most armies. I mean, everybody saw what I did in Ancient. If not, you can go back, look at my videos. I am plugging myself there. But I encourage you to go look, especially shout out to Reclesis. Go give him a sub if you like speed runs as well. He's a Twitch streamer as well. His poor Uriel deck, we played our match in about 6 minutes. Just 2 games in that span. It was insane. And just how could, like, obviously he's a good sport about it, but like to most people, like, how could you say that he even played a game? How can you say it was even a fun time? So that's what hitting this is meant to do. Reduce the risk of it. Of course, now you remove the option for Amadasi's Blaze to consistently do it, unless you draw the 1x of it. But you also limit Natural to have only like 4 cards where it's like a first action, my level 3 is attacking right away. I still think here this could have been Amadasi's Blaze instead. Suicidal Charge I kind of like, and the it kind of goes into it down here, the old Bloodworm at a Cruisen Baskar strategy. That's kind of where this card originally got its groove. Those kind of things I like and I'm cool with. So I almost would rather have seen the Blaze get hit, but it is so awkward to do that because then you're affecting 3 cards: the Candle, the Blaze, and the Inferno. So you just take out that middle piece. It's like, what's going on? The alternative there is if you say Amadasi's Blaze can't start and play and you reserve it instead, that also could have accomplished the goal here. And then you leave Suicidal Charge. So that could be something to consider down the line as well. For now, I think hitting the charge is also because of hate. That just, you hit 2 decks there by choosing Suicidal Charge. And I'm curious to see how the 1x of it will play out for certain decks. So I'm curious to see how this goes. This one, again, I think there were other options that could have happened, but I think there's at least a little bit of reasoning here where you curve 2 very fast first action decks, and that's cool. Trade routes now. Well, you all wanted the ban Zod, right? Well, this is the first of 2 Zod cards that got hit here. Trade routes is super consistent. The article, again, below goes into a lot of good details here, but basically search your deck for any 3 items, and then your opponent's supposed to have the choice. There is never a choice. There is the opponent playing, the person playing trade routes can reliably select 3 cards that will result in one of those being guaranteed. Because, like, let's say for a rogue, you get Cloak of Many Things, Nodwick, and then any item you want. Well, you just give them that item, because otherwise you give them a Nodwick, which they then equip and then use to get the item that they wanted anyway, or you give them the cloak and they discard the cloak and get the item that they wanted anyway. So it's the fact that there is no decision there is awful. It's very much against the spirit of the card. So but then you're like, how do you blame that card for every other card pool transgressions? Well, it also is like, well, Nodwick's already hit because it's a 1x of. You're not going to hit Cloak of Many Things at this point, or any of these other ways to kind of recur it. So hitting trade routes is the cleaner method. We saw Zod doing this as well, because items going to the discard pile means they can also be recurred with supply. So hitting this, I like this just to kind of see. It really does make it less consistent and slows it down a bit. If they're going to Uber up or just kind of search for one. Kothka, yes, we saw Kothka doing it as well. So just to kind of get the weapon that was needed for Karachuk to swing in the back rank. So a lot of decks can use this too. So again, multi-deck use. It's a classless action just like Suicidal Charge, so it can be seen playing anyway. As long as your deck is running enough items to justify this, you do it. Everyone remember Open? Just use this to go search for Slaughter and then put Slaughter back in your head. Luckily, we don't have to do that shit again. But that was also around. So trade routes, a tutoring effect is super strong. Knocking this down to 1, I think, is fine. Outright banning it probably would have been a little strong, but also probably would have been fine. But I like the 1X here just to kind of see how it plays out. With that, we'll keep on scrolling. Oh, man. We'll get to the one that you guys really want to talk about. Healer's Pact. Everybody loves Healer's Pact, and everyone's distraught that this card was banned. But I'm sorry, guys. We had to take away a real beloved card here. Who did the art? I can't see. April Lee. Yo, shout out to April Lee. Always fun hanging out with us. So we can love her artwork because honestly, this is a bad card. Why is this a bad card? Because it's absolutely garbage until it's absolutely broken. So it's a level 5 cleric action. The long and short of it is covered in this article as well, but Healer's Pact will never see play unless it's being used with Figurine of Protection and Pain Conduit to set up an infinite loop of reducing wounds by 1. So that's, you're just constantly reducing wounds and gaining charges and all that. It's explained down here. If you guys really want details, I don't know why we put so much text here for this other card, because Heroes Pact is really what we want to focus on. But the how of how it happens is there. But like, as the article says, goodbye Healers Pact. We never knew you. It's the most accurate. Like, and this is a perfect example of a card being banned. It's a card that no one sees play, that no one's going to miss. The whole idea of Ancients and of Warlord is that you want to play with the cards you own. No, we're not having any new cards really come in, except for the 20th anniversary, of course. But that's a very rare occurrence. So you never want to just be like, no, you can't do it, unless you're going to do like a one-off event and you want to get super heavy on those things. Like that's totally fine. But basically say that, like, decree going forward that you can't play this card. Like, you really have to have good reason in order to do it. And with Healer's Pact, no one's going to contest this. It's totally fine. And everyone is probably happy that, well, I didn't realize this was a stupid combo, but I'm glad you guys did and you got rid of it. So all of that is good there. So now we come to Dedalia, who, as we see, has drawn a lot of reaction for it. So that is also why there is so much text here kind of given, but I can kind of still talk a lot about it. There's a lot of problems with this card. Who saw the combo? I don't know who actually saw the combo before I get to Dedalia. I just got 3 copies of Dedalia, David. So here's the thing with Dedalia. Ironically enough, like, I remember when in the heyday of Warlord, when it was still in print, this card was always around. It saw play. It was not as ubiquitous as it is now. Everybody has realized that, well, shit, having 1 HP in my army is all I need, because a format like Ancients is all about building up to what is your thing. Whatever that thing is, you want to do that thing, and you want to do it faster. And you also want to make sure you don't die before you do that thing. The Dedalia does all of that. And it doesn't matter what faction you are. Some might say that that's not a problem then, because if everybody has access to this card, then nobody is really, it's by definition, that is kind of balanced, right? But again, with elves, it's not really, because they also get it ready. So it's only slightly imbalanced, but I understand that debate in terms of saying that the Dedalia is fine because everybody can use it. But also because everybody uses it, like, you have to think here to knock this out, you open up deck building as well, which is something I like about hitting with the ban. I do think ban might be a little strong, but I also see a lot of people saying, like, why didn't you just restrict it? I think that's worse. Having her as a 1X then in every deck, I guess it's kind of like Tauren, but much, much weaker. Like, so that's why I say you go all or nothing. I don't think restricted is the way to go, unless it was just for perception. But frankly, I don't think we really care about perception. We just care about doing a right thing. And I think hitting Dedalia is fine. Ideally, and I've seen this suggested, and I totally agree with it. If Dedalia was printed as a react, I think this card stays. Elves, of course, then have that and the Lost Bride, which kind of rubs people the wrong way about elves in general. But at the same time, you don't have the ubiquitous argument. You only have the recursion element with like Sever the Flesh out of elves. So it then becomes an elf problem. And then you can start hitting elves specifically, which may also end up being the Dahlia or the engines that really fuel it. So we're obviously talking like what if scenario here, sponsored by Marvel, and now Disney's coming after me because I just used that. But like that's really what it is. Like, what is this alternate world where she did have a react? Of course, then you're like, well, why don't you just issue an errata? I think what it is kind of a philosophy issue here. That errata, while we have had it as part of Warlord, and I think a lot of us are kind of used to it, the idea that you look at your card, you literally read it, it says one thing, but then when you play it, your opponent reminds you that it doesn't do that, is just the worst feeling ever. You feel like an idiot because, I missed this MRP that was somewhere else, or I missed this. And like, so anytime you can kind of minimize that negative experience, I think it's absolutely worth doing. So that's why an errata should be less like ditch effort. Like when Corteth, the stupid Arcane Corteth, was errated. It received an errata in the update previous to this. I frankly thought that was dumb. Just ban that fucking card. Like, and that's what I kind of think in just my mentality. I don't like errata. And for that, I'd rather just hit that card like you hit Ormalghast. Who cares? Overlord, it was stupid. It's broken. Hit it. It's a Warlord. Like, like that's what I would say. And so like, that's why it's like, I understand the idea of not issuing an errata to change the effect. But everybody's right. If we could ever get an MRP of the Dahlia in the 25th anniversary set where she's coming in as a react, it's like, oh yes, problem solved. And now she's off the banned list. But yeah, that's my thoughts there. In terms of everybody's reaction, anyone who's real negative to this, I try to kind of justify and really get in their minds. And there's only two logical things that I can think of that would really make you hate that this is banned. One, because you love the card and love to play it, which is fine. That's an emotional reaction and kind of what I covered early on. Like, well, we're not in the business of that. We're in the business of making sure that changes are meant to help keep the game healthy, change things up, and keep things fun. And of course, you're like, well, then why are you stopping me from playing my fun card? Yeah, well, I can't play Gravity Flux anymore. So I know what it feels like, guys, to lose cards you love. But like, it had to fucking go. If Gravity Flux is around, it would be absolutely awful. Kitchen table play is a thing, and that's absolutely a good point, Zant. So if that's the case, then like we are in a, like, I look at Warlord right now, like obviously we're us as a community as a whole, we're doing these tournaments and we're following all kind of agreeing to follow this same rule set. But at the end of the day, you don't have to. This is kind of like literally like it's a Dungeons and Dragons card game. And if you talk to anyone who's ever designed Dungeons and Dragons or anyone who's working on it now, I've heard stories of like a buddy of mine who went to, I remember it was like I want to say it was like 4th edition of D&D was coming out, and there was a panel at Gen Con, and he just wanted to kind of hear out what they were saying. And I remember the comment he told me was that everybody in the audience, they just kept asking questions of, well, what do you do with this rules situation? Or how would you play this and do all that? And the answer that every designer at Wizards of the Coast had was the perfect answer was, do whatever the fuck you want. Like, we give you this rule set, they're guidelines. They're not absolutely strict follow. Like, you don't have to do that. If you're going to play at home with your friends, like, don't worry about it. Just, you have a good reason for doing it and your friend can make an argument to do it, fine. So if you at your local group are like, hey guys, those fucking Guardians went and banned the Dahlia. I think they're overreacting little bitches and we all love playing the Dahlia. Let's just keep playing with it. Fucking, that's awesome. That's great. I'd say keep on doing it. And honestly, I do encourage that. And of course, if you want to come play with like this group that all kind of love, not everyone loves this change, but all the people who are going to adhere to this thing. And it's like, okay, is the Dahlia the hill to die on? I don't really think so. It's just literally the only thing that this card does is make you have one less card in your deck and 1 HP in your army. The Dahlia doesn't win you games by swinging. Unless you're Hector Cervantes and you're a stunned Krun with 2 wounds on him, 3 to Dahlia in the front rank. That was an awesome pose, but so see things like that. But I think that's pretty much all I can really say about the Dahlia. I'd say just kind of bear with it, guys. Like I don't think it's the end of the world. It's not stopping any archetype in particular. It's just kind of hitting cards in general. So, but it's so satisfying to have her ready. Exactly, because you know what? You earned that. You absolutely did. But man, the fact that she wasn't a react. If she's a react, we're not even having this discussion, guys. So hopefully I kind of gave a little bit of clarity there into like that thought process. But King Zod should not be playing the Dahlia. Like every single Deveranian character, or every Deveranian warlord should not be playing that. Like it's just, it's not flavorful. It's not as the card intended to be. Of course, like how do you know what they intended to be? Maybe they wanted me to play that, and of course, yeah, we get it. You don't like being told what to do in general, and that's fine. But yeah, no. I mean, she's a bard. That's cool, and it's Lynn Hunter art. It's awesome, but now it's a banned card. But honestly, guys, I would say like really think about this of this ban and really how it affects it. And instead of looking at the negative there, look at the positives of now there's a lot of other characters that can be slotted in, not just in L's, any faction. It opens up. And the card pool is so vast that you have, like, I don't know, maybe I don't speak for everybody because maybe people don't like the build decks like I do. But every time like I'm building a deck, like I do my first draft and it's like, shit, I have 50 characters. I got to cut these down to 25. And I always keep making those cuts. And there's always like cards that I like that I want to play that I really feel will really be a good meta card. And then like I have to cut it because it's not one of the 25 best on the list because something like the Dahlia, it clearly is because it means anything that in your deck by 1 is really good. Especially when, you know, you're trying to do one thing as fast as possible. And that's all this card does. So that's why I think banning it, let's see what the world looks like without the Dahlia. If it's absolutely misery, maybe it has no change. And then you kind of wonder then, okay, if it's no change whatsoever, maybe we don't need it. And then you undo it. Let's see. I don't mind making adjustments, but it seems like L's got hit pretty hard at an odd time. I don't really know. I would say the Dahlia, like L's with Arnalis, I agree with you there. I don't think that deserved to get hit. The Dahlia, you know, I wouldn't even consider that as an elf card. Like, sure, it's elf by design. Unfortunately, it's only about 20% of the of the factions that use her. So that's really the reality there. And then like Nelwis, like that's just hitting one elf deck in particular. I guarantee you L's, you know, I'll call it L's will win the next Ancients event. Like still, even with all this, Sanguinel, not a top 5 warlord, but still really good. It can win. There's a whole bunch of other elves that are still really, really, really good. I think people will just get a little bit more creative. And unless we're playing like what, Epic Edition where elves are awful, like elves, we went through the history in all these tournaments and elves were just dominant in so many of them. I consider myself an elf player. I have played elves more than any other faction. Obviously I played a whole bunch of factions, but Sanguinel, Gravity Flux, it's what I was known for a while. Like there's so much, there's a lot of elf decks that I've played, for sure. So I feel you, but at the same time, it's kind of like, yeah, they kind of deserve it. But so it's just a matter of making sure that you understand that this was not fueled by a hate for elves, but I can see it. I can see why someone would feel that way. But everything that's kind of covered in this article should hopefully kind of reassure you guys that that's not the case. Especially for Dedalia. I knew I hated you. Yeah, you can hate me all you want. That's what I'm here for. That's why I'm giving my opinion to be hated. People don't give opinions and expect to be loved. Get out of here. Oh yeah, Raziel. That was another one I played a whole bunch of. And that's another thing too. Like Dedalia, like Raziel is clearly written to not be able to draw cards. Well, Dedalia kind of skates that. It's just, yeah, it's just not good. There's some other stuff in here like clarification of ignored MRPs. All you have to really remember here is that the 10th anniversary set was just awfully templated, and that's really it. But might want to just glance at that just so you know how things go. And then, oh, look, Woodrow and his funny little memes. He loves little memes. Now, here's the question, everybody. Who was behind this door? Was it Ardenalis or was it Dedalia? Or was it both? They got a 2-for-1 special. But I think I will kind of wrap it up just with some closing thoughts. And again, I like everybody here in the chat has been very positive, or like obviously like, you disagree. I think we've all been kind of fun and joking about it. And I honestly think that that's the right way to go about it. But there are a few points that I do want to drive home too. It's one, the idea of, well, who makes these decisions for me? Who tells me that I should play that? Again, the answer is no one. And the thing about being in charge of a restricted list and a ban list, which is what the Guardians have kind of self-appointed themselves to kind of do this, being in charge absolutely fucking sucks. Like, it really does. It is not an enviable position. Anybody who has ever been in charge of designing a card game, balancing a game, or any of that can tell you, it absolutely is not glorious. You think like from like the bottom of people who might do it, you might look at that and be like, oh, you guys really dictate what cards we really get to play. It's like, you can really shape the form into it, but like you don't, because if you're in a position to do that, you understand that doing that is a surefire way to just kill your game. So it's absolutely never the goal to do that. The ultimate goal of doing that is to kind of please as many people as possible by making the most fun game. Unfortunately, gamers as a whole, we're kind of whiny and we kind of are picky. Like, we love what we love. And if you don't agree with it, I hate you with a passion and I wish harm upon your family. Like, sadly, that is what fanaticism is. Like, and it's a sad reality that we all see. I mean, look at any kind of fandom. Let's not even start talking about Star Wars, because Disney's already coming to sue me just for mentioning Marvel's What If. But literally, like, everybody's going to be opinionated, picky. It's just the gamer way. And so, like, I totally understand that. And even as a Guardian myself, I don't get offended if someone's like, this is fucking stupid. Like, because that's totally fine. Like, everybody's supposed to have that kind of response. And then, you know what? Like, if you think that's dumb, if you really get to the point where you're like, I'm going to quit over this, like, it really does break. I'll speak for all the Guardians there. Whenever someone says something like that, like, it really is heartbreaking. That's not the intention of this at all. But like, at the same time, you can't make somebody feel a way that they feel. Like, it's just, if you leave something alone, how many people quit because we don't try and change things? Because it's still the same. It stays stale. It's like, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. And that's why being in charge fucking sucks. Because, like, so no. Anyone who thinks they can do a better job, sure, you may think so. And if you can, you might not like it once you get in charge. So, not to sound like, like, be grateful or anything, but like honestly, it's all about perspective. And that's really what it is. And just general life thing is always try and think about the other person's thought process. It's when maybe a good player. Like, when I play games, it's like I'm really trying to get in my opponent's head and understanding how I think. And honestly, I think that's kind of, even though I'm a scumbag from New Jersey, I think it's also made me a better person, because I'm really thinking about what other people are thinking first. And obviously, I have my own virtues and my own thoughts. But when it comes to, again, if something enrages you that makes something not fun, then yeah, you really shouldn't play this game, and you really should leave. It sucks because, we can't afford to lose numbers, but we don't want to lose numbers, but also can't just, can't negotiate with terrorists. That's one way of putting it. Like, you're going to piss off somebody, and it's just about really doing the right thing. This is light-handed. This whole restricted list and ban list is super soft. If we were aggressive, Zod would be banned. Why? Then how many more other players would quit if you did something like that? Hitting a Warlord now opens up a whole nother can of worms. Like, now you're saying this Warlord that has been around for all these years, like, you can't play that. Like, that's just as bad. So the fact that we've gone so far without having to ban a Warlord, except for Jotya Sign, that was there because it was made when we were expecting more cards to come, and because the rules of this game are already really, really, really iffy. But I could see that coming back eventually, but because of nobody has the algorithmic mindset of figuring out all the broken shit there. It's kind of just future proofing, even though the future is finite. But yeah, definitely don't want to get into that. Don't want to get into any kind of emotional things. So that, I think, is the ultimate goal to remember here. Any of these decisions were all made by the guiding principles it mentioned in this article at the top. And giving examples like right here of ones that already exist. Really take those in, guys, and take a look at that. That's the only thing I encourage. I do encourage you guys. I'm not trying to tell you how I think. Obviously, I'm telling you how I think. And that's what I just want you guys to kind of reflect a little bit more. Like, if this pissed you off, like, the only thing I could say is sorry. And like, hopefully you're still playing. It is really it. But at the end of the day, to be my personal opinion, not the Guardian's position, is if you're upset about the Dahlia, I really hope you're only upset because you're against the idea of banning cards, as a philosophy, and that I would totally understand. There's at least logic behind that. There's reason behind that. Like, this is a card I own, so I want to be able to play it. Like, and that's why open kind of exists in some case. But in certain formats like Ancients, which just happens to be the most popular one, you have to kind of change things up a bit. The Dahlia could come back, who knows? And I'm sure people would be very happy. But honestly, like, I don't think it leaving even makes much of an impact, and that could also be an argument of why you'd want to just not ban it. So like, it is really, that's why, because of how muddy it is, I think that's kind of why we got the reaction we did from the Dahlia. But at the end of the day, I think everything will be fine. And then if anyone kind of questions a lot of these, like, what kind of makes you positioned to make these decisions, other than the fact that we have the guiding principles, it's like, well, Woodrow has built up this community to be in a point where we have all these tournaments. Let's call it what it is. Like, you do that, you've earned my respect anyway in order to kind of call these shots, and my trust that you know how to kind of do this. But at the same time, you're also an awful player and you suck at this game, Woodrow. So just letting you know that. Anyway, guys, I think that's where I'll leave it there. So if you're listening in after the fact on YouTube, thank you for watching. Thank you to everybody who's in the chat hearing me wax poetic on this. Let's peep that leaderboard. Yeah, there we go. Now let's get into real discussions. Why is Wes so busy to not update the leaderboard? Does he not want to see his name drop down? Who knows? But, hopefully, obviously, this kind of gives you a little bit more insight. Maybe it's things you already knew, but hopefully it gave you a little bit more perspective of just at least my thoughts of these changes. Overall, I'd say, honestly, it's light-handed. It's fine. I think it's cool. And I'm curious to see what's going to happen. I don't think it will impact as much as everyone thinks it will, other than just kind of pissing them off. And, that could be the reason that pissed you off. Now I'm just going in circles. But, yeah. Let's turn to more fun stuff, guys, though. Like we have Ancients coming up, and we can see, oh, here we go. Gifted subs. Thank you, Jawanski. Really appreciate it. just for giving my Jersey opinion. How about that? Damn, being from Jersey really does pay. Hey, you want to organize? You make the rules. That's true. I thought as long as no one, if anyone wants to also take up cleaning up these rules, please go right ahead. I'm sure Vic would thoroughly enjoy that. But good luck, because that's almost impossible. Unannounced, but this month is Ancients plus 5 card side deck plus free mulligan. Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about the next tournament. And that's what it's going to be. It is going to be Ancients format, and this will be in here. More details of how mulligan works should hopefully come from Woodrow. I'm pretty sure he's probably just going to post right now where it's kind of like, yeah, you get one per game. That's probably what he's going to say. I don't know if that's what you decided on, Woodrow, but you tell us. And then the 5 card side deck as well. Like the procedures of that is how it's going to go too. It's like, can you side deck? Is it going to be like, only game 2 and game 3? Do you change out, how does it go? Like, so all like what can consist of those 5, all that I'm sure you will fill out, because there should be an FAQ for that. But the whole point is it's quality of life Ancients. So that's going to be a fun one. I was thinking of doing an analysis on that, but obviously then this Ancients thing kind of came in, so this will kind of take the analysis slot between tournaments for me. But general thoughts for that tournament, if anyone's looking for any insights, if there is a deck that you like that did really good, except against that one matchup where you just ate shit, well, now you can make sure you don't eat shit against that matchup, and that's where you should look. Look at expanding on your existing decks that you already have, know, and love, and now reinforce them with holes, cards that patch up the holes in that hull. And then the mulligan, thank God, we're not going to see any games where people draw 5 actions and no characters. And this is also, I would say this tournament's an opportunity to kind of see how that plays, and if it sucks, then we never have to do it again. If it's fun, well, then maybe you consider keeping it around, and you see what the community feels, and you kind of go with that. And that's kind of what this Ancients format thing is too. Let's try it out. Let's see how it goes. If it sucks, we can always undo it. But let's see. If it sucks, we don't have to do it again. Laughs in open and Medusan Lord card. I fucking told you that, would you? Anyway. With that, guys, I'm going to sign off. So one last plug for me, Extra Life. I'm wearing the shirt. Look at that. I will be doing a 24-hour gaming session this weekend, while you guys have a 25-hour Saturday. So definitely check me out. We'll be playing a whole bunch of different games. I'll try and get some Warlord in. I got some ideas. It just depends if I have enough time to build so many decks. But we'll do some fun stuff. It won't be like, oh, this is watch you playing on tap. It'll be in-person Warlord with a little bit of pizzazz. But mostly it'll be board games, Spartacus, us yelling at people. I'm sure we'll stream telestrations, which are kind of like, really? You're going to play telestrations? Like, all that's just Pictionary with just a whole bunch of things. Like, yeah, well, when you see a bunch of sleep-deprived Jersey folk answering some of those questions with pictures, it gets pretty fucking ridiculous. And thank God we didn't record the last time we did it, because there would be bans. So this time, maybe I'm risking those 2 subs that Joanski just gave me and all these other subs by doing this, but we shall see. Hopefully I'm not banned by the end of this week, and if not, you can check out my new Twitch channel. But either way, guys, if you want to donate to Extra Life, I'll eventually post my link on Facebook. I'll post it in the Warlord group as well. Any contribution, obviously, it goes towards the Children's Hospital of New Jersey. Nothing worse than having a sick child. And I think there's a lot of people in this, well, not maybe a lot, thankfully not a lot, but there's definitely a very few specific people in our organization, in our community, who knows the value of a healthy child. So anything that can any impact we can have in the world with that is something that is, self-evident. It should understand that, see, we're not monsters. We're only monsters to healthy adults from Kentucky, not sick kid from New Jersey. So check us out, throw us a donation, and, much love and appreciated in advance. But anyway, just obviously come hang out with us and banter, because that's what I'll be running the chat for the most part, even while I'm playing games. So come talk to my sleep deprived self. And now I am rambling, but now I'm going to sign off now. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this Ancients analysis. Stay tuned for the announcement of Quality of Life Ancients coming soon to a Saga of the Storm website near you once Woodrow's lazy ass gets going. Chop, chop, Woodrow. Get going. Have a good one, guys. Bye-bye.